picture of your artwork or a phone scan instead of an actual scan, you might not have the image at full size. For instance, this says it's 42 inches wide, and we know that's not true because this is probably about 5 or 6 inches wide. So I took a picture with a ruler in it so I know how much to scale it, and I can take a section that includes the ruler. So I'm going to go from 14.5 to 20.5 and crop that. And then we know that that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. So I'm going to rescale it to image size 6 inches wide. The resolution doesn't matter because we're working in Illustrator with vectors, so you don't have to change that here. But by doing this, I just made it life size. I think some of you are going to need to rescale your artwork so it's larger for this project. Not huge, but big enough so that the cuts make sense. So in this case, I'm going to make it 200% of the original size and work with that. So the next thing that I want to do is, I can do this in Photoshop or I can do this in Illustrator, but I want to basically find the area that is the repeat. So with this artwork, it's hand cut, so it's not going to be exact, but I can figure out where the beginning and end of the repeat is by making a selection like this. And you can see I'm starting here and going over until I see it again, and then going down until I see it again. And that's the selection that would be the repeat. Even better if you trace it and do this so that you can really clarify it while you're tracing it, but that's up to you. So I'm going to actually bring this whole image in, but I'm going to bring it in a way that I can see this section. So if I put guides on, it's not going to keep them in Illustrator. So what I'm going to do instead is go to image, adjust the levels, and just make this area a little bit more saturated or darker so I can see what my repeat unit is. And then I'll deselect and I'll save the file as something I can remember, like trace me. And then I'm going to open it up in Illustrator. So I can trace it. And thanks again, Hallie, for your artwork. So I think I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to remind you that in any Adobe program, you can arrange the windows however you want to. You can also reset them by going to Window, Workspace, and Reset Essentials. So if you ever get confused about where things are, you can start from scratch and then pull out what you need. So what we need here are the layers. We need the stroke. We need the Pathfinder. And I think yesterday we learned that we need I think it was the pattern. Well, I'll come find that when I need it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to trace the section that is the repeat and then tile it out. But I'm going to do it on a couple of different layers. I'm going to lock the background layer, and then I'm going to make a layer for the slits / background. And then I'm going to make a layer for the strips that we're going to weave in. This way, when I make the file, I can just separate it into two halves instead of doing extra work. So on the slits background layer, you can notice that there's two sets of slits that Hallie did, and they go in different directions. And I believe she told us that she doesn't want them to be different angles, that she actually likes the same angle for both. So I'm making a different color so that I can see it, and I'm just going to draw one dash, and I'm going to make it thick enough so that we can see it by changing the stroke weight. And I'm going to duplicate this. I'm holding the Option key down right now and clicking and dragging, and that's an easy way to duplicate. And then I'm going to select both of them, click and drag, and I'm going to Option, Transform, Reflect. And in this case, you can see that the angle is not the same as on her cut piece, but she's already said that she wants it to be the same. So I'll use that setting there, and that's a quick way of doing that. And then I'm going to lock that layer. Then on the strips layer, I'm going to use another totally different color so I can see it. Maybe this orange. And I'm going to draw what I need to draw. As I said in class yesterday, you don't have to draw the whole thing, especially when it's mirrored like this. So I could draw this angle. I'm holding the shift key down to make this go straight and then go halfway this way. And that's all I need because everything else is a function of mirroring that section. So you have to look at your own artwork and decide what's possible. But if I want to mirror this, I can go to Object, Transform, Reflect on the horizontal axis and make a copy. Oops. I accidentally didn't pick the whole thing, sorry. Object, Transform, Reflect on the horizontal axis, copy, and then I'm just using the arrows on my keyboard to move it into place. So when I get it there, I'm going to zoom in and do something called joining. I'm going to join the two sections together that are barely touching. So I can either use the move tool and the arrows on the keyboard and bump it into place, or safer for me is to select both ends and say Object, Path, Join. And that will allow those things to join, and I don't have to worry about a gap when they're doing the cutting. So once I have that, I can take this and Object, Transform, Reflect on the vertical axis. I don't mind if you draw this the slow way. I'm just showing you how to draw it the fast way. So this is going to be my repeat. And you can see it deviates from the original a little bit, but it is going to be more balanced. And the only thing I really have to worry about is like, what if these dashes don't line up anymore because there's a slight change, and I can just go to that layer and adjust them. And it looks like I might want to go to this layer and adjust this anyway. So once I have that for this particular artwork, I can say Object, Transform, Move, and I'm just going to move it down vertically. So nothing on the horizontal and maybe just like 2 inches down on the vertical. When I toggle the preview, I can see how much it's going to move, and I'm going to make a copy. And then I'm using, again, the arrows on the keyboard, which are painfully slow, but if I hold the shift key down, it moves by 10 times the speed. So let's go down here, and you can see where I would want them to intersect. Selecting them both, Object, Path, Join. Sometimes it does a little glitchy thing. I'm not really worried about this on this particular file, but if I was, I could use the pen tool and you can see how it's hovering over with the minus sign, and I could just get rid of one of those points. But I don't think that's an issue when you send your file over. I can also make sure they're joined over here as well. So this area did not get joined. So again, I'm selecting the two ends, Object, Path, Join. And then if I want to get rid of one of those, I just hover over it with the pen tool until I see that minus. Let me zoom in so you can really see it. And click on one of them so that it's not glitching out at that intersection. All right, so I'm zooming out. I have this section, and I'm going to say, select that whole strip, Object, Transform, Reflect on the vertical axis, copy, and now I'm holding the shift key down with the move tool. Move tool is the first one. Hold the shift key down, and the arrows are going to let me move it really fast. And this should let me move it into position. So it's entirely up to you where the placement is. In this case, Hallie seems to have dropped it down halfway. I'm going to make it match what Hallie did. I'm not going to change anything. This should give you artwork that will repeat by doing this. I do think that these slit lines should be moved so that they fit more easily. You don't want to end up engineering something that doesn't weave. My fear is that if it doesn't weave, then it's going to become really rippled and bulky in a way that you don't intend. So I'm going to lock that layer, unlock the slits layer, and just while I'm in this early stage, move this so it aligns better. And actually I'm going to move this one too, so it aligns better. Okay. So here I should have everything I need to make a repeating pattern, but I do want to note that the box that I denoted here doesn't actually contain all of the lines that I've drawn. I've sort of drawn the lines down here. So I'm gonna take what I've done here and basically move, I have to unlock everything. I'm gonna basically move it into that area, even though it doesn't line up with my artwork anymore, and see if I can contain the repeat with nothing cut off in that area. See how I can do that? And it looks like it's not totally filled in. So I'm gonna take this and actually duplicate it out. And duplicating it out, I don't need that background. I can just take this and copy it and duplicate it into a bigger repeat area. And it looks like I'm missing some of the dash lines from the original artwork. So you're just constantly using the template to check whether or not you've done enough to create your repeats. So I'm gonna take the slits and I'm going to duplicate them and move them down so that I have them here. Take these slits, duplicate them and move them down so that I have them here. I'm going to take the entire artwork and I'm going to object, transform, move. I'm not going to move it vertically. I'm going to move it horizontally, -3 inches, and copy it over so that I can stay on the same line when I move it. I'm a little worried about things not lining up. You can see here, that looks pretty good actually. And then I'm going to take the whole thing, object, transform, move, and I'm going to move it vertically. So not horizontally, but vertically. I'm going to move it -4 inches and copy it. So repeats are hard. You would need to make sure everything lines up, and these videos should help you understand some shortcuts, but it's fine to do it in a way that takes a little bit longer as long as it's right. So this should be an entire repeating pattern. All of the slits should be filled in. You can see here that those are not. So I'm going to lock the strips, take this, put it down here, take this, put it over here, making sure I have all of the elements. I don't need it down here because that's the end of the repeat, but I have all of the elements that I need. And if I take the background off, I can see that I do have everything in there. Okay, so now we're going to talk about cropping. Yesterday in class, we did some very confusing cropping, and I think that today I'm just going to use the crop tool on the, what do you call it? The crop tool on the tool menu bar, and not try to do anything tricky with the clipping mask. But I'm going to stop this video here so that the cropping can be its own thing, and also putting it into repeat.